a bird flies through one of these crows that live outside, flies through the window with 10 grand in his beak. He says, Ben, you can have this, but you have to buy a guitar with it. What does the guitar man buy? After all the experience you've seen, what's like, I mean, I know that there are, certainly not this guy, but there are people that will freely spend 10 grand for a guitar.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And if somebody, and if like, I know, we've known each other long enough, I know that in your head, I'd never spend it. But let's just say that the hypothetical crow said, you can have it, but you gotta buy a guitar. Bass or guitar, doesn't make a difference. What do you buy?
So I have two answers for that. One is, I would buy an acoustic.
Okay.
And if money were no object and I was being forced to purchase a guitar, I would actually buy a Collings acoustic guitar. Largely, not that I'm brand conscious or anything like that, but I work on a lot of guitars. I see more guitars in greater detail per year
than any player, for sure.
Than just about anybody on the planet, you know, aside from other, like my buddy Joe Glazer up in Nashville, you know, who's also an excellent tech, or Jeff Luttrell out in San Francisco. You know, they're seeing a lot of these instruments too, but your general public musicians do not. Every time I see a Collings, they are superb and they sound fantastic. There are lots of really great sounding cheap acoustics. You never know until you pick it up and play it. I've also seen really expensive guitars, acoustics that sound terrible. Collings, I have never heard a bad one.
No dogs.
Never. I've played guitars way more expensive than Collings that sounded terrible and needed tons of work. Collings, it is my job to look for problems in instruments, and I'm really good at finding them. Collings, those show up and I go, man, this is pretty good. There's not much I need to do. There's not much I need to do this. So that's answer number one. Answer number two is just more of a pie in the sky crazy thing. This
is a free guitar, man. The Crow
it's a
brings
free
the
guitar.
money in.
Well, this one would be really expensive. So my buddy Joe Zahn builds Zahn bass guitars out in California. And he builds a very odd bass guitar for this unbelievable bass player named Michael Manring. And it is called Zahn Hyperbass. And I won't bore you with all the details of all the things that it does, but it is essentially, the main thing is, it is a fretless instrument that has a 3-octave neck on it. You get all the way up, full 3 octaves per string, and you can change the tuning of every single string in multiple configurations on the fly.
What's it got, those hip shot numbers? You just
it has 4 of those.
Whatever they call the flip tuners.
Yes, it's 4 hip shot tuners, 1 on each string, and it's also got a custom built bridge to do tunings with that, all based on levers. And Michael Manring creates...
Wait, what was that second part there?
Yeah, the bridge also changes tunings. So between the tuners and the bridge, you can get thousands of tunings out of this thing on the
permutations
fly.
Are off the charts.
And this gentleman that this was built for is a bass player named Michael Manring, who's a huge inspiration
Does
for
this guy
me.
have 7 ears?
I think he's got 7 brains. How he keeps track of this. He's a terrifying musician and creates unbelievably musical stuff, changing tunings mid-song as part of the deal. He'll hit a harmonic, throw a lever, and have this harmonic ringing out. Michael Manring. Manring.
Okay.
Look him up. He's amazing. Check him out.
Michael Manring.
Yeah. So,
I want to see this guy in action.
Yeah. And you would pay, I don't know how
what's
much
the
Joe,
number?
I don't know how much Joe is charging to build a Zahn Hyperbass these days, but my guess would be somewhere in the 15,000 range. Yeah. But they're, again, Zahn instruments are also generally pretty exquisite as well. And I don't need to do a whole lot to those either.
I don't fault anybody for making money, especially not anybody who's an expert in what they do.
They deserve all the money they can get.
If somebody's good at it, don't fucking argue about it.
Yeah.
I think you will attest, I never question the numbers that you ask me.
Yeah.
Because you do, the numbers you charge me, and you know, they're care and feeding with these old guitars. Never question it. You're fucking fantastic at what you do.
But, you know, that said,
a Zahn.
Yeah, but that said, I'm never going to spend that kind of money on a guitar ever because, you know, I don't really need to. It's more of utility for me.
It reminds me of Jim Hall. We got 3 incredibly handsome, very bald people here. We got
Yeah.
Benjamin, Chris, and old Uncle
Yeah.
Joe. Another one of my idols, Joe Pass is definitely, and both of us have spoken about him.
Yeah.
Is Jim Hall, another bald gentleman. I remember, I think you probably know the quote. Somebody asked about the guitars that he played, and he looked at him and he said, "It's a tool. It's not a wife, and it's not a dog."
Right. I like that.
Because I think I think Pass and Jim Hall traveled, and all I need is a 175 at the gig. It doesn't really make a difference what you got. Just make sure I have one of them. I think that's what Jim Hall did.
Yeah.
He didn't give a shit. He's like, I'll play whatever you got.
Yeah, I wish I could do that, but I can't because I also don't use a standard tuning either. So I show up and you hand me a P bass that's tuned EADG, and I won't even be able to play a 145 bass line for you. I can't. But this is tuned in CGDA, and I can get around on that all day long. But standard tuning, lost.
Years and years ago, I wanted one guitar, and I learned how to play slide guitar in Open G. And then when I grew, everything's in Open G. I just close everything off. It took a long time to learn everything.
Yep.
These tunings, they create individuality. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that that's what it did with me, but it does with you. That
helps.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to shift gears, and I'm going to ask you some very guitar-specific questions. And
Sure.
I cannot stress enough for the kind of folks that are watching these podcasts. This man is fantastic at what he does with guitars. Now, and Aaron Janss's partner, equally just brilliant. People ask me very kindly, very nicely. Usually, many times after gigs, they ask me guitar questions, and what should I do here? What should I do here? What guitar should I buy? And I always say one thing: when was the last time you got your guitar set up? And most of the time, that answer is never. And I say, well, that's where you start. Do that, and then ask if you want another guitar. That being said, what would be your advice to a guitar player, like a new guitar player, a new guitar player buys a fancy guitar off of a Guitar Center wall or a music store wall. They get it home, and here's the slap in the face of reality. Not from Chris, but from the guy who's the mechanic himself, the mechanic extraordinaire. What do you do with that guitar fresh off the wall?
Well, I think one of the problems with a lot of this stuff is that people don't know what they don't know. And you have an entire industry of manufacturers advertising at you that our guitars are perfect and that they're made for musicians by musicians, and none of that is really true. I mean,
here we go.
So take for Fender, Gibson, Taylor, Martin. They are literally, each of them, pumping out hundreds of guitars a day out of the factory. A day. So when the kind of accuracy that you need in the guitar to play well with nice, easy, low, easy, the strings not being a mile off the fretboard, but closer to, we like to put them in around like 1.5 millimeters or less away from the strings. That level of accuracy to play well, you're not going to be able to build that in a factory environment. It's just not feasible, and it's not really in their business model to do so. So the key thing when you're picking out a guitar, I've told this many, many times, the number one most important thing with picking out, say, an electric guitar is, does it look cool? It's got to look cool. Otherwise, you're not going to pick it up. You're not going to want to play it. Number two is like, how does the shape of it feel in your body? If it's big and pointy or whatever, and it's jabbing you in the chest somewhere, you're never going to change that. Everything else is malleable to a degree. So the biggest thing is that once you find this guitar that fits you, it looks cool and feels right in your body, is to get it set up properly. Most of the times that involves leveling the frets, the metal parts in the fretboard, because those need to be even with each other within about 1/10 of a millimeter all the way up and down the neck. Once those are leveled, you can pretty much set the strings as close to the neck as you like, and it's going to play as clean as the physical world that we live in will allow. And it's not as expensive as you'd think, and with somebody who's really competent and knows what they're doing, they can make just about any cheap guitar play like $1 million. I could hand this $350 guitar off to just about anybody, and they'll tell me it's the best playing guitar I've
I
ever
can
had.
attest to that.
Yeah. So there is the thing, is that you can spend $300 on a guitar, say throw 200 some odd dollars into it to have the frets leveled and the guitar properly set up. It's going to play like $1 million. You spend $3,000 on a guitar, you still have to put 200 some odd guitar dollars into it in order to make it play as well as the $300 guitar you just did. But now you're out an extra 2,000 some odd dollars. You could have bought 10 guitars and done that to them, you know? So that's, I think, my biggest thing is take it to somebody who's qualified, who has a good reputation, that knows what they're doing, which, to be perfectly honest, those are pretty rare. You know, I could rattle off.
It's just like an auto mechanic. Some are good, and most are generally, not most, but like everybody, we're all adults here. Not everybody is good at what they do for money.
And I could rattle off a small handful of shops around the entire country that I would say are actually really good. Which is not to say that I know them all, but I definitely know the ones who are doing good work. So, but if you take it there, you have somebody competent doing good work on your guitar, you're going to get so much more enjoyment out of it. You're not going to be fighting the instrument as you're learning how to play. Like, learning how to play a guitar that hasn't been set up properly is kind of learning how to skateboard when you've got a square wheel. Like, well, you're going to sort of maybe learn how to ollie, I suppose, maybe get a couple of things going on, but it's never going to really roll properly, and you're not going to have any fun. But you have that wheel trued, your path to success is going to be so much easier than if you don't have it done.
Completely understood. And that's a hard pill to swallow when we buy a t-shirt. You expect to put the t-shirt on and it's going to act like a t-shirt.
Sure.
And that does not transfer. The more if a guitar is a once a month thing in your life, take it off the wall, figure it out.
Right.
But if it's not, the hard truth to swallow is that they need work.
And it's also hard.
Not lots of work.
Yeah. It's just a little bit of work, and then you're done. But yeah, we are conditioned to want things. Things are tangible, and this is, I'm gonna go get this or get this, and I can hold this thing in my hand. Paying for a service is just this invisible thing that you don't really appreciate until you've actually seen the results. And it is so much easier and more tempting to go out and buy a new amplifier, a wah pedal, or whatever, than just, take your guitar in to get set up. And that wah pedal ain't gonna fix your playing.
Nope.
But
none of that
having the guitar setting up well can remove a lot of roadblocks to technique that you may have been struggling with for years. You didn't even know it was the instrument this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, as a young player, everybody goes through it. And I don't know how old that was when I was doing it. I'm sure you did the same thing. With the guitar, you learn like the rudimentary bar chords where you have to put your fingers, make a 6-string chord in the middle of the neck. Very difficult to do on a guitar that isn't set up. Very easy to do on a guitar that is.
Yeah.
And if, for those listening now, kind enough to listen, if you're a guitar player, and most of you are, if you're a new guitar player, and some of you are, if you're trying to play bar chords and you can't do it, you heard it from Ben Strange's mouth.
Yeah.
Get the thing set up, and your path, your obstacles go get smaller, and your opportunities get bigger.
Yeah, and it's it also is kind of a nice feeling that the idea of you struggling might not be your fault.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It could be. Look, it doesn't guarantee success.
No,
but it guarantees you not being pissed off because you can't do something.
It's true.
I mean, no, not everybody is, fill in the blanks, but everybody can practice. And if your guitar is, I love the fact, that it was, if the guitar is fighting you, for the overall vast majority of people, music is a pleasure, it's a passion, it's something you enjoy doing. You write a song for your boyfriend, you write a song for your girlfriend, and 3 people hear it. That's cool, that's fun. You might as well set yourself up for success, even if that's what you're doing. Yeah, you derive a hell of a lot more pleasure out of playing a guitar if you play it and don't fight it.
It's true.
All right, what's the question I'm not asking from a real expert in the way these things are? People storing them the wrong way? Like, are people setting them? What's the question? What's your best advice for someone with a guitar that they want to? They bought the guitar. They've set the guitar up. The thing is playing perfectly. How do they keep it that way?
The answer is surprising. Is play it. If you put the guitar in a case, stick that up under the bed, you forget about it and you cease to interact with this thing. And if you leave it out on a stand like you have these here, I never put anything in a case. If it's out, you're naturally inclined to just reach for it and just play it. By having that regular interaction with it, you're going to notice when something is wrong. If you let it sit in the case for weeks, months, years, that thing is slowly collapsing upon itself. Every guitar usually is under roughly 150 to 200 pounds of string tension at all times.
There's 150 pounds going that way?
Going from the bridge, from the neck to, it's compressing. So
150 pounds. Holy
acoustic guitars are hovering in like the 200-ish pound range, give or take.
That's a lot of pounds.
It's a lot of poundage. Yeah, and you think about this is a thin piece of wood. There is not really much there holding these things together. And so guitars are naturally in a state of wanting to collapse upon themselves. And if you just let it sit for years or decades under that string tension, things are going to go wonky. And so if you have a regular interaction with the instrument, you're going to notice when there are problems. So that, I think, would be the big thing, is just play your damn instrument. Leave it out and, interact with it.
Cool. That's excellent advice. Being in Louisiana, in the Northeast, with big, solid acoustic guitars, absolutely critical to keep the thing's humidified, or else
100%. Yes.
What do you do in Louisiana? I know what I do, but what's your advice?
Louisiana, largely nothing.
No. You'll be fine.
So
just leave them there.
Yeah,
plenty of humidity.
So the funny thing is that too much humidity is not going to really hurt a guitar so much. There's only so much moisture that wood can absorb, to a point. Katrina notwithstanding, but they can always get drier. And so we actually saw this when New Orleans had its very first ever blizzard warning, and we got 10 inches of snow, and I saw so many guitars in the weeks after that, acoustics specifically, of tops totally collapsing,
really?
Inverting.
In that little bit of time?
Yeah, because everybody was turning on their heaters and blasting them like crazy, and we don't have the culture of humidifying our environments because we don't need to. And so suddenly I've got all these guitars, some of which we've already done work on, and the tops have collapsed so much that the strings are just laying right on the neck. And so people are like, hey, it's crazy, I can't even play it, what should I do? And largely our answer is, you're gonna have to wait, because humidity will come back into these things. It just takes time, and so we've taken in. We've taken in a few of these things. We've put, you know, a little moist sponge in there with it to just let that that water in there evaporate and then get into the guitar itself, and they start expanding and swelling back out to their normal
and
state.
The strings go up. The strings go where they should be.
Yeah, you know, hopefully.
Generally.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to go back exactly, but yeah, we've had a number of those. We've just had to, we got to give it a few weeks of humidifying and see what it does and make adjustments from there. So, yeah, dryness is definitely a guitar killer. Humidity, too much of it, isn't really all that bad.
Fair enough. Mm-hmm. That's excellent advice. And you know, in Louisiana, like you said, you don't have to do too much.
Right.
But if you're listening to this in a dry climate, you just spent $300 or $10,000 on a guitar, make sure you keep the thing humidified. They make what's your go-to as a guitar? What if you lived in Montana in the wintertime? They make guitar humidifiers to stick in case. What's your take on those? What would you buy?
I mean, a guitar humidifier is essentially just a sponge.
That's it.
So you can get the fancy business, but largely just anything that is putting out some sort of humidity into your guitar is fine. We'll just because we don't keep brand name humidifiers in my shop because they're not really necessary, but sometimes we will just, like in this case where we had a couple of guitars come in that had just completely collapsed, I literally just grabbed a sponge, moistened it up, sticked it inside a Ziploc bag, left it open just a little bit, dump it down inside the guitar, closed it up in the case, and said, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
That's it?
Yeah.
And it absorbs. Huh.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. I enjoyed the conversation immensely.
Likewise.
Immensely.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Final thoughts from the like again. I'll say it again. I have the utmost respect for both of your musicianship and your ability to keep these things running. Anything that we missed that's critical. Anything that I missed, you didn't miss anything.
I mean, final thoughts. I would say largely like this is supposed to be fun, and you know if it's not fun, address why it's not fun and figure out how to make it fun. Because if this isn't fun, then what are we doing here, right?
Bingo. Fucking bingo. All right, Benjamin Strange, owner, proprietor, and guitar tech. One of two incredible. Tech is not the word I want to use. The art, craftsman. That's a better one. Aaron Younts and Benjamin Strange. Strangeguitarworks, 1122 Dublin Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. On the web, fire away. Is it Strange?
We're at strangeguitarworks.com. You can find us on all of, most of the social media